A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to another serious big-time episode of Survival of No Limits, and the last that I'll have for this segment before I move on to yet another location. Today I'll be talking about the many troubles that might be associated with having sleep. Yeah. Insomnia, of course, is just one of many things that can, in fact, inflict your rest. And you could also say that there really are a lot of other ways that could go wrong when it comes to sleep loss, or basically insufficient levels of rest that happen every single night or day, depending on if you're an early bird or a night owl, or maybe somewhere in between, like me. An elapse albatross, if you will. But when you really look at things around here left and right, no matter what kind of person you may be or what kind of job you might have out there, there's really a lot of ways that you can look at it. The way I see it though, there certainly are a ton of things to look out for, and there's also plenty of other things that could potentially happen. So much so that it almost gets to a point where you might not necessarily want to look back on life anymore after you look at all these different studies and the like that have happened. I've talked about before how insomnia can be very impacting, and how a 2010 study has shown us how 36 hours of sleep that has been lost, pretty much, is guaranteed to be pretty deadly. If you go for at least a day or two without having any kind of rest at all, then you are likely to have a serious brain trauma, especially lots of disorientation, hallucinations, and possible other effects that take place. Yet, when you look at it, sleep can be affected in many other different ways. You could, of course, have a huge caffeine overdose, which would make you very possible to not at all have rest in any other way. Caffeine is, of course, a stimulant and not a depressant like alcohol. And then, of course, you really got to look at the fact that with a lot of things in my life especially, I tend to sleep near midnight and usually wake up between 7 and 9 a.m. every morning, which usually is a good amount of rest. But most of the time, a lot of people would consider the optimal levels of rest every night to be around 6 hours every night. And most of the time, I actually found that to be true. Otherwise, I would not be waking up so well in contrast to how I usually have been. But of course, like I've said, lethargy is not a good enough reason to sleep for very long periods of time just because you've lost a lot of sleep in the past few days. So either way, it's just horrible. Going without sleep or having way too much sleep would not at all be a good thing for your mind whatsoever. You got to be very careful with how many hours you sleep every night. How many hours you sleep a night, plus how much you do in order to make yourself feel the need to rest every night, is also a pretty big dependent factor on how you can look at these things in any possible way. But it's most important to note that with all things considered, sleep is certainly an essential. Not just for the body and mind, but also for a lot of other things. Well, you know what? That's the end of that. That's the end of all this too, pretty much. So, I will see y'all in another episode, in another location. But until then, if you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.